Hello, changemakers. Bonjour tout le monde. Tanchi, kia? I'm Mike Perry, and I'm honored to be the Executive Director of the Institute for Change Leaders. And welcome to this new Voices of Change podcast. The ICL equips people from all walks of life with the public narrative storytelling and concrete organizing skills they need to lead transformative, lasting, and progressive change in their communities that they and their communities want to see. We base our leadership programs on the work of renowned organizer Marshall Gans at Harvard. Look around us. Times are tough. Where's the hope? Well, the hope is in all of us and in this new podcast for action. So won't you join us? And now, over to your Changemaker host.
At this point, I'll just begin. Hello, world, to everyone who is listening, to all those who may have just clicked in here accidentally. Welcome. My name is Amrit Parhar, and I am going to be your host for today's brand new podcast with ICL, Voices of Change, where we talk about those who are making change one voice at a time here in Canada and beyond. This is episode 2 of our podcast, and we are in what we call, it's argued as our either toddler phase or our teenage phase. We don't know where we are quite yet, as this is only the second episode. And, you know, we had started off with episode 1 where the podcast had just been born, and now we're going through our, growing phases, and hopefully going to get into a full grown-up podcast eventually. And we, thought about who can we bring in as our next guest that is warm, intelligent, someone who's knowledgeable, exciting, a little sassy, which we like every now and again. And once we had narrowed down a couple of names and made some phone calls, we arrived at our guest today. She is an organizer, an educator, quite frankly, a street fighter, I will say, when you get her to it. A person who has stood up on matters when they really, really matter the most to the people and when the people themselves need it the most. And she's truly been part of a transformative change that I've seen since I even got started with the Institute and really with the organizing. And it's been felt not only here in Toronto and the GTA, but I think nationally at this point. And you would know these, especially if you're parents and you have little ones and little beans with you. And so, listeners, with that said, we have Erin Filby. How are you?
Hi. I am really happy to be here. What a lot of nice things you just said about me. I don't know how true they are, but they were very
They're
kind.
all true. They're all true, and you know it.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. And happy to be here. And the world is a lot right now, Amrit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
It's quite a bit. There seems to be a lot going on, not only here in Toronto and the GTA, but globally there's a lot happening. A lot of organizing that we're seeing as well, which is really great. But a lot of things happening, a lot of changes that we're seeing, some for the better, some not so much.
A lot going on, but I can't think of any other way to keep going and to get the world that we want, except for being with people who care as much as we do and doing the best we can. So that means I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing, beauty. I know, I feel like it's once you find those folks who are very, not only like-minded, but they are folks who are just they've done the work, they know how things function, and they can understand things from a very perspective that we tend to have, and show you that there is actual hope in the world. Take us from what we teach, that stagnation, to that motivation. As cheesy as it sounds, because we've used this many times, from that fear to hope. Especially when times are really tough and it seems like there's a lot of despair and things that are happening, but you as an educator, as one of our instructors, facilitators, having worked with now, our now Mayor Chow, her, lovely worship herself, amongst so many other folks in, doing advocacy, both here within Canada and the UK. God knows where else in the world you've done some organizing, probably a whole lot that I don't even know about. And currently you're making a lot of change with, a decent work campaign with the Association of Early Childhood Educators of Ontario. It's a long acronym, AECO. And alongside other, alumni and standout organizers that we have through the Institute, like Alana Powell, who is a force, I will say, having met her and worked with her for a little bit, and also with Carolyn Ferns, who is also a whole other beast of her own, like very, very powerful human beings.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to kind of talk about how you got started. How did you get to where you are? What's your organizer's journey?
Oh my gosh. Well, I didn't know I wanted to be an organizer. I didn't even really know I wanted to be an educator until I was in my 30s. I had my son, and couldn't afford childcare. And even if I could have afforded it, it would have gobbled up like 75% of my salary, and I had a fairly good job. I couldn't get a spot. And so I ended up staying home with my kid, and I don't regret having done that because, don't tell him I said so, but he is an enormous amount of fun to hang out with. But I was really aware that there was something missing. And so I spent time looking for community. And I found community in a parents and family literacy group. So what they used to call what's now the early on programs.
Okay.
And a woman called Miss Fatima leaned over a fence, and she invited me in. Literally, she leaned over a fence and was all like, "Hey, you want to come in here?" And I'm like, Who me? Yes. And I was waddling around the block with my toddler and my dog, and she invited me specifically into this community. And so the next day I was like, okay. And I dressed up myself and my toddler like we were going to a job interview, actually. but I got to this space, and it was the most warm and welcoming. Like a yes space for small humans to do what they needed to do, and their grown-ups to say yes to it, and for me to talk to other grown-up humans. And Miss Fatima, as an educator, as a facilitator, made that community with her hands. She built it. She built the relationship. She brought people together. And she wasn't a community organizer, but she was a community builder. And I was like, okay, clearly I want to be a Miss Fatima when I grow up. And so I went back to school. I was in ECE at George Brown, but I still didn't have childcare. And it's really hard. It's really hard to be in school with no childcare. So a group of my peers asked me if I would speak about it at an event, and I was like terrified. I was like, oh. But I did it, and then somebody came up after that event and hugged me and was like, yeah, me too, I don't have childcare and it sucks. And knowing I wasn't alone and being able to let somebody else know they weren't alone felt really powerful. And the folks that I was who had asked me to come speak were connected to advocates. And so I sort of fell in with a rough group of advocates and and ended up never leaving because what I believed in what they stood for, and because I found my people. And so when I had finished school and when I've been doing community work, but ECE community work, family support. When a job opening came up at the AECO, I was like, yes, I would do that. Because the other part that I've been doing when I was doing family support was hanging out with the ICL folks. I did one weekend training, and I think at the end of it, I think I was probably like, I never want to go home. And I was just lurking around.
Honestly, I think that was the first training where I also met you. So this is where I was a little placement student. Yeah. Lo and behold.
Baby Amrit.
Baby Amrit. Baby, I remember this was May of 2018. It was. May 4th and 5th, I think, was the weekend. Yeah. And it was Baby Amrit's first day on the job as a placement student. And I know, and I remember just coming in and seeing like, okay, that you had just gotten this community organizer position, and I got to like watch you from afar, not realizing that this is what would happen years later, but just being like in complete awe of like, holy cannoli, what are these ECEs doing? And there is so much power, because there was, I remember you were there. I'm pretty sure Lindsay McDonald was also there as one of the coaches and facilitators, and I remember just at the end, no one really wanted to go home. We all kind of wanted to party a little bit and just hang out and continue to speak about the work, because there were so many interesting campaigns and things that really came out of that training. You know, and I believe you had a whole group of ECEs, most likely. From what I can recall, it was a long time ago, and baby Amrit was doing quite a few things. But I want to ask, like, so what does one community organizing mean to you? And then having come onto the ICL side of things, how's that developed, you know, the work that you've done in the political world? Because organizing tends to often become political at some point in time. And the community spaces, how did that lead you to be part of ICL story in general?
Right. Yeah. So I guess the first question, like the what is community organizing?
What is community organizing to you?
At its heart, I think that community organizing is about making spaces of care. And I mean, maybe that's me, because, you know, care is so central to the work that you know, ECEs do. But I can't think of a single person or institution that wouldn't be better if it made central the premise that people need to belong, and they need to be understood, and they need to feel safe and cared for. And community organizers organizing with people who deeply understand that what, you know, people need to feel seen and cared for. ECEs absolutely know that. They know that. They do that every day. So we're being able to work with those folks to put care and belonging and community really at the forefront of community organizing. It's a massive privilege. It's a massive privilege to be able to work with folks who are trying to you know, build a world for themselves, and to build worlds for children, and to build worlds for educators and for everybody, really. But with this idea that care is central and that humans deserve to be cared for, it's a massive privilege. I'm super lucky.
Honestly, even having done the work that I've been able to do, it's always something where I feel like sometimes it's rare to be able to do the work that really is driven by your passion. And that kind of makes you feel whole. It's not necessarily a job where I'm clocking in and clocking out and doing very, you know, similar tasks on a day-to-day. It is truly kind of, like you said, building that community, building that sense of belonging, but also that like sense of hope for people. And I think earlier in the week, I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and it was like, we've personally made so many changes in people's lives, and that is bonkers. Humbling, but also like super cool. To be able to do that. And so you know, you had mentioned that you had come in to ICL's training where there's baby Amrit that was also there, and then you didn't want to leave. So how did you get involved with the Institute, and what have you done really since?
I mean, the not wanting to leave part was, like, in all seriousness, being, you know, I would have taken the training again in a heartbeat, because it spoke to me in ways that really nobody else and nothing else that I'd ever learned had been so explicit about what the potential could be. Lots of what we hear and lots of what we are asked to think through at, you know, university and kind of in life feels like a catalogue of you know, woes to horrors. And and to have yes, and this is what we can do about it together, felt like a massive revelation. It felt like, okay, clearly, like this is the, so I didn't want to leave, and then one of the team asked me if I would like to facilitate. And which was terrifying to me because the facilitators who were there, the first time were amazing, and I was like, oh yes, please, I'd like to. But I was a little nervous. But then I got to facilitate, and it felt like the connections that we had, being able to hold the stories that people bring, and what. My favorite thing about ICL is there aren't too many situations in the world where you can look at another person and say, tell me about you.
Yeah.
Tell me about the thing that makes you most passionate, that makes you, tell me about the thing that you want to change in the world and how you figured out that you want to change that thing. It's like a shortcut to knowing a person. And I have goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps that it's a way to know people and to the privilege of carrying their stories. I can remember almost every story of everybody I've ever facilitated. Like I swear I tuck them into my heart.
Yeah.
And that it felt like the best thing ever. Because people were leaving those sessions with the same feeling I'd had, that, clearly this is the answer. Clearly, doing a thing to change the world is the answer. And that felt really, really special. And also the team at ICL was freaking cool. A bunch of really lovely human beings, and that's, never a bad thing.
Yeah. It's a fun crew, I will say that.
Yeah.
It's a very, very fun crew. And so since then, what have you gone on to do, honestly? Like, you've done so much. Tell us, talk about that, and talk about the organizing that you've done, especially in the ECE world. Yeah,
so organizing communities across Ontario and being kind of a contact person, and doing my best to be like the friendly face problem solver, and the connection between what can feel like policy can often feel kind of distant, and it's hard to see yourself in policy. Yeah. So being the connection between policy and how it looks on the floor, but also how it looks on the floor and policy. That kind of connection, supporting those groups, has been part of my work. In the last year or so, I've been working specifically with parents and organizing parents, because we have this incredible situation. We have this kind of time that we've never been in before, with this huge potential to have a universal childcare system that is works.
Yeah.
And that can change people's lives, that has already changed people's lives. And to make sure that it's being built correctly from the foundations up, in the face of some opposition or some misunderstanding from various people, like from the province to perhaps people who don't understand childcare.
Yeah.
So doing that kind of organizing and sharing as best as I can, encouraging, celebrating, and prodding people who are affected into taking on the work themselves, but supported, so they're not trying to do it alone. And I sometimes get to teach the ICL curriculum, which is the funnest. It's the funnest.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of fun. What about it is so fun for you when it comes to teaching and doing kind of like more, I guess, on the curriculum side of things?
Yeah. I think that, logistically, that every day looks completely different.
Yep.
That every group brings a completely different energy, and you never know what you're going to get. And that kind of, it's exciting. That's wildly exciting. Sometimes when I am when I'm teaching, I will hear a participant respond to something or ask a question that will blow my mind, that will change how I understand the world. And that's really cool. It's really cool. Being able to bounce off of kind of other people who are teaching the curriculum, being able to hear and share ideas and kind of inspiration with facilitators is really important. And it's also like having a refresher course into sort of, ECEs have something called continuous professional learning, and we kind of do courses and stuff. But when it comes to being a community organizer, teaching ICL or working with the gang feels like a refresher course, to the things that really matter in the work that I try to do at the ACL.
Yeah, it's like almost you get like a new perspective. Like you've learned the curriculum, you've seen the curriculum for the last 7-8 years, and then you go in and teach, and you're like, new understanding of the curriculum. Okay, and that has now been unlocked. And being able to kind of bounce the ideas off of the rest of the team that we have, and I feel like we've built our own little cool community.
I think there's also something to be said for because I work with folks who for whom care is really central to the work. Being able to figure out what does ICL mean and how does it work for them has been, and also what do they know and what aspects of care belong in the ICL curriculum too. So that's
With our trainings, one of the questions that I always like to ask is, was there one particular, or whether it be a training or a group that we've worked with, that really stood out to you?
That's a tough one. Because everybody.
Yeah.
I think it seems mean and to be all like, ECEs, they're the actual best. but a little bit, because so many of the skills that ECEs have are so useful and conducive to organizing. They get the various aspects of their curriculum in their guts. They know about storytelling because they tell stories every day. They know what it means to listen to what people are saying and what people aren't saying, because they often have to translate toddler or preschooler speak every day. So they know that what a gift it is to be able to share attention and to say, I see you, and what you care about, I care about too. So that they just they get in their guts a lot of the time, and that makes them kind of easier to teach. Perhaps they're fun to hang out with anyway.
That's fair. That is fair.
And their ideas, I can't almost to a person. An ECE, every ECE I know has in their pocket they have rocks and chalk and something creative that they did. And so when we're talking about tactics and strategy, they don't have this kind of, they don't have like a box that they have been stuck in. Their ideas are wild and explosive and fun. And when they have confidence in themselves and their own ideas, what is possible from those ideas is really incredible. I like them.
I mean, I do too. They're one of my favorites. I like to work with and to work with. Just one last question before I jump into the final question is always, in the organizing work that we do, we always have a setback here and there. How have you in the ECEs, especially, dealt with these setbacks? I know you do a very special thing with whenever you guys do a big a big scary thing. There's a chill out moment that you have together. But how do you deal with some setbacks when it comes to the organizing work that you do?
Yeah, it's a good question, because we don't win all the time. I know, it's surprising.
I know.
I sometimes think it's the biggest it's the biggest and most important skill that we have, is being able to pick each other up and carry each other when we don't get what we need and when we lose. And to be able to take time, actual time, that is devoted to nothing, not devoted to, what's the next strategy, that's or what's what are we doing next, but to take time to figure out, how are you doing, what do you need right now to be okay, how can we hold you up, how can we show care to you individually, and to be able to let people do that for each other, and to make space really specifically for that to happen is how we survive. It's how we keep going. Because if you care about something so much and it doesn't go the way that you want it to, it can feel like, it does feel like grief.
Yeah.
And to be at home, working from home and in front of a laptop, carrying this grief in the pit of your stomach by yourself, it's hard.
It's really hard.
It's hard.
You feel like you're almost isolated.
Yeah.
That it's just you.
Yeah.
That's going through this, and it's tough.
Yeah. And to feel that that it's a burden to share with other people. Like, I am in pain and I don't want to share that burden with other people. Often when we ask people, how are you doing? When Elmo asked the internet how they were doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that popped off so hard. I was like, oh dear, okay.
Yeah, it turns out not okay.
No.
But to let people have space to say, not great.
Yeah.
And to not have to just have that moment is how we survive the tough stuff. Because when you are understood by somebody, when somebody understands you, it's not a waste of time. Knowing somebody cares about you makes me so much more likely to fight like hell for them and for us. So being really intentional about making those spaces where people can care for each other is, we don't do it because it's strategic. We do it because it's true, but it's also strategic.
Yeah.
Yep. So that and the I love that you brought up the
I had to, because it's so cute and I love it.
Well, it can be nerve-wracking to do things for the first time.
100%.
Yeah, and so if ECEs, lots of ECEs have felt really disengaged from politics, or they don't feel like, I don't know what advocacy is, enough advocacy for me.
Yeah.
So if we're doing something that is for the first time, that feels like it might be kind of something that's outside of their experience, we go for ice cream after.
Just like my favorite thing. I love it.
Because when things have been difficult and you've been a bit nervous from the start, and then you can go and have ice cream and hang out with your it's
friends.
And it's just you're hanging out, having ice cream with
people.
Somebody who shared an experience.
Exactly. And you get ice cream.
Yes.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Ice cream.
Exactly.
So that's what we do. When we've done a difficult thing, then we have ice cream every time.
Love it.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want ice cream.
Right.
Right? I'm like, cookies and cream, come at me. This is our final question that we like to ask everybody. What is a key trait that someone must have to create a change?
Right. Yeah. Not to be all like, it's always care, but it's care.
Care.
And it has to sort of, you can't fake it. That care, and not just about ideas, but about people.
Yeah.
So I guess care as a prompt for you to make a connection with somebody else, and to care about them, and to care about what they care about, and to care about what you can do together. It's care for me. It's always care.
Love it. I know that some of our team members, they'll say, caring is kindness, and really showing that through and making sure that that brings people together to then go and be this, driving force that really creates and enforces change.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on onto this, our second episode, our teenage episode, as we say. And with that, folks, I guess that's been Voices of Change. It's where we talk to those who are making change, and one voice at a time in Canada and beyond.